But I'm really struck by the fact that in December of 2023, many people made Secretary Lloyd Austin go through the stages of the cross in self-flagellation and mea culpas for not informing the president that he was having a surgery. And now how we're treating Secretary Hegseth as if he is untouchable. Mike Waltz, when he was a member of Congress, went in the Committee on Armed Services to talk about and slammed Austin for holding himself to a different standard than the American people. And yet we are not doing this across the board. And that's disappointing, at the very least, very disappointing. Director Gabbard, thank you for your testimony. And one of the things that I believe I heard you say was that when there was a discussion by DOJ as to the cuts to foreign aid, that there had not been a request for an intelligence and national security or an intelligence assessment of the impact of those cuts. Was that your testimony a little earlier?
Congresswoman, I have not seen any kind of actual official assessment either within the intelligence community or outside of it on what the effects of those cuts to USAID programs has been.
But it was not requested by DOJ of you or of any of the areas in which you have oversight over?
I'm not aware of any requests.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know that there has been some open source reporting on what the effect of those cuts are. I mean, when we think about several examples, Kenya, our strongest regional ally in the Horn of Africa, and a key partner with us in the fight against terrorist group Al-Shabaab. And, according to the Washington Post, that's not definitive, and we can talk about this in closed session. Some Kenyan journalists are now being trained by Beijing, mirroring the U.S. programs that have been cut by the administration. Director Gabbard, is letting China train Kenyan journalists going to make Kenya more or less receptive to American requests of the Kenyan government, do you believe?
As you said, Congresswoman, our relationship with Kenya has been very long-standing.
So do cuts of ours to train journalists in Kenya make them more or less, and Beijing having that make them more or less receptive?
Clearly there is strategic competition taking place. I'll withhold my personal view to look at an official assessment.
Well, I was asking for your director view, not your personal view. And then additionally, we have ended Voice of America, which provided accurate, unbiased news, in our opinion. Meanwhile, St. Petersburg University has announced that it's opened 11 Russian language centers across Africa that pay special attention to the promotion of traditional Russian spiritual and moral values. Director Gabbard, is Russia a friend or a foe? Are they our friend or our adversary?
They are an adversary.
Thank you. I believe that this reckless cuts make terrorism and our influence in Africa, which is on the front lines of terrorism, a real threat to us, and we need to be careful of it. Director Patel, one of the benefits of being here kind of in the middle is I get to hear other people's testimony and the questions that are asked. I know that Mr. Carson asked you questions specifically about the counterterrorism division. And we know that there has been some open source reporting that says that individuals within that division have been removed or been moved, not necessarily fired, but moved. Do you know if that is correct?
I don't have any personal information on that, but people within the CTD component, which is a large component of the FBI, move all the time.
And have they been moved? Are you able to get that information to us, whether they have or have not been moved?
I'll go back to my team and see who has been moved. If you have a particular interest, we'll share it with you.
Of course, we have an interest in counterterrorism division and movement of individuals within that. Because one of the other things I'm concerned about is you have stated, I believe in other areas, that the disbandment of certain sections of the FBI related to intel and breaking up components. Can you explain to us how you intend to do that or what you would like to do and why?
My intention is to reprioritize counterintelligence authorities and cyber capabilities to focus on violent crime and national security, and that's what I'm doing.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Thank you.
The gentlewoman from Missouri, Madam. What you just saw was not a simple question and answer exchange. It was a clash that cuts to the very heart of America's foreign policy and national identity. Stacey Plaskett didn't dance around it. She put Tulsi Gabbard on the spot with the kind of directness that strips away the talking points. Is Russia a friend or an adversary? At first glance, that may sound like a yes or no question, but it's far more layered than that. In politics, the way someone answers or avoids answering can reveal more about their worldview than 100 carefully scripted speeches. Why? Because words in geopolitics are not just words. They set the tone for alliances, they shape national security strategy, and they send signals to both allies and adversaries about where the United States stands. To understand the weight of Plaskett's question, you have to consider history. For decades during the Cold War, the Soviet Union was not just an adversary, it was the adversary. Entire generations grew up in the shadow of nuclear standoffs, proxy wars, and ideological competition. When the USSR collapsed in 1991, there was hope that Russia could become a partner. But as the years passed, instead of a stable partnership, we saw a steady drift back into hostility. Vladimir Putin's rise to power brought with it a strategy of reasserting Russian influence globally, even at the expense of democratic institutions and international norms. Think about the record. Russia invaded Georgia in 2008, annexed Crimea in 2014, and launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. They've interfered in U.S. elections, hacked critical American infrastructure, and waged disinformation campaigns across social media to sow division among Americans. On top of that, Russia has been aggressively expanding its influence in Africa, offering military aid, mercenaries, and propaganda campaigns, all while the United States has cut back on its own presence. This is the backdrop for Plaskett's sharp line of questioning. She wasn't just asking Tulsi Gabbard to label Russia, she was demanding clarity. Because if a political leader hesitates to call Russia an adversary, despite everything we've just listed, what does that hesitation say about their alignment, their priorities, or their vision for America's role in the world? And here's where it becomes even more important. Influence isn't just about tanks and soldiers. It's about who shapes the narrative. While U.S. programs like Voice of America are being scaled back, Russia is funding cultural centers and launching initiatives across Africa that spread its worldview. China is training journalists in Kenya, filling the gap left by American programs. What might look like small cuts in foreign aid or media training today can create massive long-term consequences. Because when people stop hearing America's voice, they start listening to someone else's. And often, that someone else is pushing values and policies that undermine U.S. interests. So Plaskett's question to Tulsi Gabbard was not just about Russia. It was about the bigger struggle, whether America still has the courage to define its adversaries clearly, and whether its leaders are willing to confront that reality head-on. Because if leaders can't even admit who is working against the U.S., then how can they be trusted to defend the nation when the stakes get higher? This exchange reminds us that democracy depends on clarity, honesty, and the willingness to call things by their name, even when it's uncomfortable. In a time when disinformation is rampant and orthodox regimes are testing the limits of American resolve, that clarity is not just a political necessity, it's a national security imperative. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to stick around. We're here to cut through the noise and bring you deeper context on the moments that truly matter. Hit that subscribe button, share this with someone who cares about the future of our democracy, and let's keep having the conversations that too often get lost in the headlines, because an informed public is the strongest defense any democracy can have.